Hey, do you like anime? Well, I like anime, so let's head on out to Anime Expo. What do you mean the prices increased? Oh, guess we're not heading out to Anime Expo. Hey, do you like anime? Well, I like anime, so let's volunteer at Anime Expo. So, similar to my previous video on AX, I'm gonna be talking about the causes that would lead up to this event. This would start somewhere around February when Anime Expo had tweeted about raising the prices soon. As a result of this tweet, I had decided that I wasn't gonna be attending this year because, well, the prices went up too early, and the event was still a long time away from thinking about getting a ticket. However, a week later, they would tweet about volunteer applications being open, and that got me intrigued. I mean, free tickets to Anime Expo. That's like $165 I don't have to pay. But I mean, I still needed someone to bring along with me. Volunteering alone wouldn't be fun, right? And so, I asked my buddies if anyone wanted to volunteer with me, and they all said no. Well, I guess I'm gonna go alone then. Despite going in alone, I still wanted to try volunteering for Anime Expo, cause like, this was gonna be right before I headed to college. I saw this as a path to many opportunities. This would of course give me free tickets and other goodies listed on the site, but that wasn't what I was too keen about. It also gave me an opportunity to broaden my horizons, learn what it's like to work for a big event such as this, look good on my resume in case I ever wanted to include it, and also to just give back to the anime community. And with that came the application for volunteering. To apply, you would either press on the link they tweeted or go to the volunteer section of the Anime Expo website. You would then fill out whatever was listed on the site, like what department do you want to be part of, or if you volunteered before, and what skills do you have. I honestly forgot what I put in terms of like skill. However, I did put that I volunteered at an organization in the past, because technically I did during high school. These departments I chose were access control, weapons policy, and I think volunteer resources. And with all of that, I submitted. Now here comes the months leading up to the event itself. There will be a point where you will get an email asking to set up an interview. That'll be the first hurdle you have to jump. For me, weapons policy was the one that emailed me, and so I set up a date with them. The questions itself shouldn't be too hard. It'll probably be something like, how did you learn of this? Why do you want to be a volunteer? And how would you respond in a situation like this? I personally thought I fumbled this interview. A week later though, I received an email that I got in. So, cool. After getting accepted, the volunteer resources will email you some stuff that you gotta do beforehand. Like, sign stuff and do some lessons. Kinda similar to when you apply for school or other types of work. There's also some other, like, stuff volunteer resources will send to you, like housing and commuting signups, later down the line. Those were the main things in terms of completing stuff online, cause afterwards, there's mostly just in-person stuff, like the Los Angeles Convention Center walkthrough or the training itself. If you can't attend the in-person training, there should be virtual training, but you might have to tell them beforehand if they do present the option. And then, it's almost time for the event itself. They will probably have sent an email a little bit back on what kind of shift you would like and time request, things like that. It might be a first come first serve type basis, so check whatever panels you want to attend and whatnot beforehand. With all of that said and done, here comes day -1. For day -1, I used it to get my commuter's pass and also the swag bag, which included the badge needed for entry. Getting these wouldn't have been too much of a problem if it wasn't for the fact that I wasn't too accustomed with
Los Angeles.
For living in SoCal, I kind of forgot about the horrid traffic, and add in the fact I also got lost looking around. It wasn't ideal. Even so, I was able to arrive at the convention center using the volunteer shuttle they provided. Honestly, seeing how empty the convention center was really surreal. It was pretty neat to see, quite literally, the calm before the storm. That said, I would make my way to the Weapons Policy HQ, where I was told that most of the stuff needed for setup hadn't even arrived yet, so there wasn't much I needed to do at that moment. The lead would also show me the way to get to the volunteer tent for lunch, and here's what we had that day. Chicken, mashed potatoes, corn, and salad, with a cookie too. Afterwards, I would make my way back to the HQ. While walking back, I would bask in the fairly empty convention center. Honestly, I was surprised at how nice it felt to be in a fairly empty area, and how interesting it was to see the, unfinished work. I would arrive back and all we really did that day was get P-spawns and separate them for the usage on the actual event. It took a bit of time, but relatively easy work. And with that, came the end of day -1. Day 0 was somewhat similar to day -1. I would commute to the parking area, use the shuttle, and get to the convention center. If I recall correctly, we started a bit later because a small chunk of volunteers were late due to the shuttle. That transitions to a good mini PSA right there. So, while they tell you that the shuttle will take around 20 to 60 minutes to arrive, it's better safe than sorry to assume it's gonna take 60 minutes, because most times it is not arriving in 20 minutes. After everyone arrived, we settled down and did a little icebreaker. It was like a series of questions related to anime, like, would you hop into different anime worlds once a day or live in one forever? Stuff like that. Finishing up the icebreaker, we took a little trip to JW Marriott, as that would be one of the areas where Weapons Policy would have their booths set up. So it was kinda like giving us a general idea on how to get there. Once we returned, some of us would go out into each area and help set up the booths. I would go to the north booth to set up with 4 other volunteers. It was fairly easy work. Set up the canopy, and rearrange whatever was needed. Afterwards, we headed back and that was basically it for our shift. I headed to go get lunch at the volunteer tent, but I kinda forgot to take a pic. Just know that it was also chicken this time. After finishing up lunch, I took a bit to bathe in the emptiness of the convention center, and then just went home. Wait. It wasn't that bad right off the bat. Let's just chill a bit, okay? Okay. So, I woke up at 4 AM to get ready. I decided to cosplay as Luffy for day 1. Cause, well, what's Anime Expo without like at least one cosplay? My buddy Alex from the previous AX video would then pick me up at 5. He wanted to go early so he could see the welcome ceremony. And while we were driving, he was talking about how his coworker told him that people would arrive early on day 1. No, I didn't really believe him, like while we were walking to the area. However, I stood corrected, seeing how there were so many people sitting in line at 5:30 in the morning.
40 a.m. Holy.
We would later split off, Alex going to the West Hall entrance, while I headed over to the Weapons Policy HQ. It was definitely an experience to look at the place being empty right before the swarm began.
That's cool. You want to kick it?
I would wait in the HQ with some other volunteers, and then eventually we began our shift. As you know, it's day 1, so it's going to be very crowded, as seen in these videos. According to a guard I talked to on day 4, there were apparently over 100,000 people at the convention. A byproduct of having a lot of people would be having a lot of props checked on day 1. For the most part, it went pretty fine. We usually inspected either firearm props or swords people bring in. That is to say, those weren't the only props. There were also some items, of course, that we didn't allow in, with examples being signs and whips, because it's considered a weapon. The prop I had to check the most in the morning would probably be Zoro. And then lunch break. I went with my shift group to the tent and then headed back to eat at our HQ. While going through the tent, there was some guy giving out free posters, so I decided to take the most tame looking one. Anyways, let's go to the food. The food would consist of this: rice, chicken, fried veggies, and cookies. While we were heading back to HQ, there was a Zoro in the Petrie Hall line outside that shouted like, "Captain, let me eat!" That was pretty funny because, you know, I cosplayed as Luffy. But besides that, once we finished eating, there wasn't really much time left in our break because walking to HQ already took a decent amount of time. So I just used the extra bit to explore some of the exhibit hall. Though I think I was probably only there for like 10 minutes before heading back to the next shift. The afternoon shift was relatively more chill. Still mostly consisted of inspecting swords, primarily the Demon Slayer cast, if not the Zoros. Before I get into one of the Zoro stories, a PSA for Demon Slayer, specifically Tengen cosplayers. I might mention this later, by the way, if you don't want to listen. If you cosplay Tengen, be sure his sword is under 7 feet. When the chains are connected, it is considered 1 prop, not 2, so detach if needed. Now, to the Zoro story. As you should already know, metal is not allowed in the convention, unless it's like something small, such as springs. However, there are some instances where people bring in props that are metal. In those instances, we usually tell them to return it to their car or something. If they ever suggest leaving it at our booth, it is considered abandonment, and they can't come and get it back. Well, this Zoro decided to bring in 3 metal swords. He didn't want to return it to his car, which is fair. It was day 1. So, he abandoned all of his swords, right? No. He abandoned 2 swords. But for one of them, he used the file that the weapons booth provided, like for modifications and whatnot, and filed off one of the swords in order to keep the hilt. the fact that each sword costs like around $60 is wild to think you'd even file one of them and throw away the other two. And just filing it off took 30 minutes. So, if anything, it was commendable that he filed off a sword. Literally like Zoro type mindset. That's all I really got to say for this shift. Once it ended, I went to eat with a volunteer at the tent. This time it was lasagna, chicken, salad, broccoli, and a brownie. Afterwards, I would go to Artist Alley with the person I ate with. He bought a shirt from Chiro Fish, while I got a jacket from Ghost Boat. We would part ways once the Artist Alley trip was over, and I headed over to the Diamond Ballroom at JW Marriott. I would meet up with Alex again, and we stayed there for the Tacitly concert and the Nonstop V concert. I honestly loved the Tacitly concert. It was very enjoyable. The Nonstop V concert was also pretty cool. There was a person beside me that was very enthusiastic in terms of cheering. But I was kind of pooped after cheering for the Tacitly one. Jashin Chen was also in there for some reason, and that was kinda odd, cause, you know, she's an anime character, not a VTuber. But after that wrapped up, both Alex and I would go home. So, for day 2, I woke up at 4 again, and decided to do a DIY scientist Ina cosplay. Alex had the lab coat though, so I wouldn't be able to wear it until way later that day. This time though, I started driving at around 5:30, because apparently I'm bad at tying ties, and I took too long to even tie one. Anyhow, I arrived at the convention center with no traffic and stuff, so I was pretty set there. With it being the second day, it felt immensely more chill. That said, there was still a good amount of cosplayers coming in to have their props checked. The most fun thing about day 2 was definitely the security guard we had at the booth. He was really chill, and he bantered around with our group while doing prop checks. Since he wasn't that knowledgeable on anime, he called us the anime gurus and tried to pop quiz us with random cosplayers that crossed by. He definitely got us with some of the characters, but I'd say the other ones, we nailed them. One thing he did know though was Dragon Ball, cause he's an OG. He watched everything from beginning to now. So it was pretty cool to see his passion about Dragon Ball and how he felt about some of the things in Dragon Ball, like what they did to Gohan. One of the volunteers was also joking about him, or like joking with him, about whooping him in Soul Calibur because the guard was apparently very confident about his skills in that game. He even called his own son on his phone to confirm his skills, so it was pretty funny. We had a lot more discussions at our booth, and eventually our first shift ended, meaning lunchtime. This time I ate at the volunteer tent instead of heading back to HQ. The food would be tacos that included beans, rice, salsa, salad, and chicken, with cookies of course. After the meal, I would meet up with Alex again and spend around 30 to 40 minutes inside the entertainment hall. We first went to buy light sticks for the Hololive concert, and then I took a picture with some cool cosplayers, and we later finished it off taking pics at the Trash Taste booth. I didn't really have time for the Hoyoverse or Yostar booths this time around. However, the Trash Taste booth was pretty cool, honestly. There were a lot of pics that could be taken at that booth, And, of course, I took that opportunity to take pics. There was also a trash can section, but I didn't see it until it was too late. Now, we're back for the second shift. Not much really happened afterwards. We got back to chatting with the security guard that was there until he had to finish his shift for the day. Once he left, it was mostly just chilling for the most part with prop inspections placed in between. Eventually, the shift ended and I got out of the convention center as quickly as possible. Why? Because it was the HoloLive concert time, baby! I don't think I'll say much on this because, well, the HoloLive concert wasn't part of Anime Expo or the volunteer experience. However, I have to say that having it as one of the first concerts I've ever went to was definitely an experience. Very fun. And with that came the end of day 2. Now, it's time for day 3. This time, I woke up at 4:20 instead because, well, I saw that I didn't need to start driving at 5, so I just drove at 5:30 instead. I chilled at the HQ room upon arriving, and then, boom, shift time. I was placed at the same booth from yesterday for day 3, so that meant that the same security guard was there. There was also another volunteer that had the same shift as me from the previous day, so that was pretty neat. Anyways, the morning started off amusing because a group of teens had challenged the security guard to shadowboxing. That was actually the first time I even heard of shadowboxing, and in case you don't know what it is, it's kind of like that Mario Party game, Don't Look. They basically have to combo you into looking at where they're pointing. And from what I got after playing it on Roblox with a friend a few days later, it's pretty fun. Needless to say, the guard lost the shadow boxing and the clip is probably residing somewhere on TikTok now. Aside from that, there wasn't really much in the morning shift. Most people already got their props checked on for the first and second day, so now it was like trinkles of prop inspections in between. So, for the most part, I just chatted with the volunteers and the guard at the booth. There was one volunteer that was really passionate about the metro and trains and buses. So I learned about those 3 things a lot that day. I'll speed forward now and just have the first shift end. Now, it's lunchtime. For lunch, it was broccoli, salad, lasagna, and green pasta with a brownie. Once I finished, I just went back to South Hall to walk around. I was able to take a picture with a cute pom-pom cosplayer, and also a cosplayer I followed on Insta for a while, so that was pretty neat. From there on came the second shift. We spent the first half of it patrolling around South Hall, seeing if there were any weapons not peace bonded yet, and whatnot. Nothing really too exciting there. We would later come back to the booth, and that's where the slightly interesting thing happened. A dude came to have his prop checked, and it was a soju bottle with a mic taped on it. However, of course, we can't allow that because that's a weapon, right? The thing was that behind him was some dude just recording everything, so maybe that will pop up on YouTube somewhere, or probably a Twitch VOD. Funnily enough, a few moments after that dude passed, came some girls that had a sign. As stated earlier, we didn't allow signs, and so they couldn't bring it in. But once we told them that, they went beside our booth or like somewhere nearby and recorded a TikTok of why they couldn't bring it in. So I guess we're gonna see that one on TikTok somewhere. Besides that, we just let time pass. Well, time would pass long enough for the second shift to end. I would then meet up with Alex and we headed over to watch the Anime Men panel with King Christian. It was honestly a very fun panel to attend, and there wasn't really any issues I saw with it. Once the panel finished, I just dipped and went back home. There was still plenty of time to kill that expo, but the truth be told, I was just extremely tired and I didn't really want to bother. I'd go home, play some games, and sleep, concluding day 3. And it is now the final day. I woke up at 4:20 again and headed out at 5:30. This time my shift would be at JW Marriott. Here's the thing though. JW Marriott had no more Anime Expo events that day. It was basically closed. And as a result, I practically didn't do anything there at all, apart from redirecting the occasional lost Anime Expo attendees. Aside from that, I just chatted with the volunteer that got paired up with me and one of the security guards nearby. We talked about a lot of random things. One of the notable topics being food, because the volunteer that was paired up with me was actually from Chicago. As such, he was asking about some good places to eat. Honestly, I couldn't think of much on top of my head, but both the guard and I came to the agreement that, in most cases, the local restaurants in communities have good food. No specific places are really needed. Actually, the guard was the person that told me about how many people had attended each day, so that was interesting to hear. I'm not sure if my memories are correct, but according to her, she said something like day 1 being over 100,000, day 2 being 90,000, day 3 being 60,000, and day 4 having an estimate of 9,000, which was very surprising to hear. The first shift would end soon, and instead of heading out for food, I would use the break to go with a volunteer to an artist alley. I was kind of hoping for some discounts being thrown out because it was, the last day, but seeing how my break was still in the middle of the day, I don't think there was any flash sale of any sorts. Alex would also join up later with us on our artist alley trip. There was the Pixiv booth that offered a free phone case if you did their survey, so I did it and got one. All in all though, I didn't really buy anything, though Alex got a good chunk of stuff already there, and the volunteer bought a Attack on Titan print. So, while I really didn't buy anything, I was able to get a picture with a cute Ina cosplayer in Artist Alley, so I was pretty happy with that one. The second shift would come in and, well, literally nothing happened at the booth. No one really came to get their prop checked, cause, last day and all, so we just sat and watched people enter the convention, really. One of the leads came over for a survey about a volunteer satisfaction experience survey or something like that. And that was, well, what we really just did. After staying at the booth, we finished off the shift by doing patrolling. And when the shift ended, a group of us headed for the volunteer tents for basically one last meal. The food this time was also tacos, with beans, rice, meat, salad, and cookies. We finished the food there and headed back to HQ right after. Now, everyone is at HQ, and that's when we began the department meeting. We did a little award ceremony, like who had the least amount of sleep or who drank the most water type of awards, and it was pretty enjoyable. There was also a custom award each volunteer could suggest, but, well, all the choices were probably too vulgar to be even revealed, sadly. Once we finished the little award ceremony, came the final speeches from some of the leads and the volunteers themselves. It was really nice to hear everyone's thoughts about the journey, and with that came the end of Anime Expo. So this will be my chill section where I won't use a script much. I won't edit really that heavily and just talk out of my mind. Even though this is probably the third time I'm recording this, because the last one I said too many ums and I'm trying to fix that. So we'll probably start off something like volunteer, PSAs, whatever, something simple. So let's see. When you volunteer, I said it. Okay. When you volunteer, or when you apply for volunteering, there is a chance you might not get it guaranteed. I would say I was pretty lucky because first time ever applying for it and instantly got in. But I have heard from someone in the convention, like one of the volunteers, he mentioned that it took him quite a long time to get in, and he also had to use a referral system because referral, like there was a friend of his volunteered there. So yeah, I'm not really too sure about that though, so test your luck, see if you could get in, whatnot. Let's see, next one. Before the actual event starts, you know, there's sometimes there's like in-person training, like walkthroughs, whatnot. There might also be meetups that should be probably depending on the department. Weapons policy did have it, so I was like, it's very cool. You gotta meet some of the people that do go. It's nice seeing them and whatnot. And let's see, the leads, I'd have to say weapons policy, the leads, everyone is like really nice to me. They're really understanding. How they could be, they're actually, I have nothing bad to say about them. They're really nice people, so pretty thankful to be in the department of weapons policy. And I think I could say that it should probably apply to other departments too, but don't take my word for it. Oh yeah, shuttles. For shuttles, you should probably be at least an hour early in order to take the shuttle, because even though shuttles say they take 20 to 60 minutes to arrive, always assume it's 60, because you're probably gonna be late if you assume it's gonna be like 30. That's how some volunteers were late before, and it wasn't that good. And next thing, food tents. Or yeah, you see how I mentioned, like I went to, like in the video I mentioned, oh, I went to volunteer tent for food, this is a food. Yeah, basically Anime Expo, they provide you food, 2 meals a day, so make sure you get a meal each time, because they don't stack. You get 2 meals, one within a certain time period, one within another certain time period. They don't, and if you don't use it, then well, you just waste it. I'll continue this a bit later. Alright, this is my second cut. I'll probably just finish it off here anyways. So for volunteers, you have for okay, let's say this. When you walk inside the convention, you know how it's crowded, right? Well, volunteers have like, you could use the back aisles, like corridors, in order for more convenient and fast transportation. Because, you know, volunteers have to like get to each place, whatnot, in a certain amount of time. So it's convenient. I don't know if I'm allowed to show it to you, so if I do show it, I'll probably just blur it out. And then let's see, shifts. For shifts, they should, I don't know, for weapons policy they sent like a form you put asking what shift you want, like morning or evening, and then there might be time request off, but that might differ between departments, so you'll probably have to check on that. Let's see. Next one. Oh wait, actually, on the shifting, if there is time request off, you should probably check what you want to attend beforehand, like panels. Like if there's a content creator or there's a anime premiere that you really want to get to, make sure you know what time it is, so then you could request it off or take a later shift in order to not intercept with those two. I don't know if I talked about construction yet since this is a second recording, but very interesting to see how Anime Expo they set up even right before the event starts. Well, not day one, but like day 0, day -1. Very interesting to see, and that's all I really gotta say about it. Lastly, badge reimbursements. Since there is a chance you might not get accepted into volunteering, I think some people do buy the badges beforehand. I didn't because, well, if I didn't get accepted, I wouldn't have gone. It would have just what it is. But on the occasion you do buy it, like buy the badge, and you get accepted into volunteering, later on they do send an email for badge reimbursements so you can get a refund on it. The only thing you really need to do, fill out their form and also make sure your badge has not been activated so you can get recompensated. That should be all I really gotta say. And yeah, on to the conclusion. And now comes the big question. Should you volunteer at Anime Expo? That's a pretty hard question to answer. I'll give it how it is. You will probably not get a lot of sleep, depending on how you use your time. You might miss some panels, depending on the shift you decide to take. Rules might change on the spot while you're volunteering. Hell, you might even get some flack from attendees because of these rule changes, even if you didn't make the rule yourself. However, you are provided with a free dorm, which might change in the future, I don't know, or a free parking pass. Also, throw in a goodie bag, a free admission to Expo for yourself, and another free one for a friend and family. But the free stuff isn't really the important thing. With volunteering, you're able to meet new people that you probably wouldn't have met otherwise, and definitely gain experience on something that you probably wouldn't get anywhere else. Experiencing the convention to the end as an attendee is one thing, but experiencing the convention as a volunteer to the end is another thing. I think for me, while volunteering at Anime Expo was rough, I can't lie about that, it's a memory that I'll probably cherish fondly in the future, remembering it as a fun adventure I did right before starting college. And that said, decide how you want to decide. Maybe research more if you want. But for me, I think I might just run it back next year. This time with a better game plan, hopefully.